Chris is 6 p.m. and this is CBX Business News. The business news headlines are brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible. NARA questions intensify, export ambitions grow, and Canada pushes deeper economic ties. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Thursday, May 27, 2026. I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, governance questions are growing around NARA as scrutiny intensifies ahead of the agency's reconstruction rollout on June 1. Also ahead, Trinidad and Tobago targets a US $2 billion boost in non-energy exports by 2027 as it pushes to diversify its economy. And later, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney makes the case for deeper economic integration with the United States, citing trade, energy, and competitiveness. Stay with us as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
It's feeling so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now. Don't never, ever, ever wanna calm down. Oh, no, no. Yeah, yeah.
The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with fresh scrutiny surrounding the governance framework of Jamaica's Reconstruction Authority. The debate surrounding the leadership of Jamaica's National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NARA, is now widening into a broader discussion about governance and confidence in the institution expected to oversee billions of dollars in post-Hurricane Melissa recovery and resilience projects. Fresh scrutiny emerged after the opposition People's National Party PNP renewed concerns about the governance framework surrounding NARA and questioned the circumstances that led to the appointment of Major General Anthony Anderson as Chief Executive Officer. The party says the government should clarify whether Anderson participated in the authority's original international recruitment process and explain the outcome of that exercise. The concerns follows Wednesday's announcement by Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness, who said the recruitment exercise attracted more than 80 applicants and involved interviews with shortlisted local and overseas candidates before Anderson was selected to lead the authority. Holness says Anderson's leadership and public service experience positioned him to guide what is expected to be one of Jamaica's largest reconstruction and resilience programs. However, the opposition argues that the appointment has renewed concerns it previously raised regarding governance arrangements within the NARA legislation and is calling for greater transparency surrounding the recruitment process. The party is also urging amendments aimed at strengthening accountability and public oversight. The Jamaica Stock Exchange Limited JSE says a long-term diversification strategy helped shield the group from one of the most challenging economic periods in recent history. Speaking at the JSE annual general meeting earlier today, Group Chief Executive Officer Livingston Morrison highlighted the extent of the operating environment in 2025, which, he says, was shaped by a convergence of economic and climate-related shocks that placed pressure on both investors and listed companies.
2025 was a year that tested every possible assumption. Hurricane Melissa made landfall in our strongest trading quarter, and the consequences reached every corner of our market. Macroeconomic conditions were no kinder. Rates remained tight, growth was thin, and corporate earnings came under significant pressure. On the main market, the average ordinary stock depreciated by 6.5%, and at least 10 listed companies lost more than 20% of market capitalization. This came on the top of the still fresh damage from Hurricane Beryl in July 2024, which caused 2.8% contraction in GDP for the third quarter of that year. Two major hurricanes within 15 months. That is the backdrop to the year that we have just experienced.
Morrison also revealed that the JSE Group recorded revenue growth of almost 9%, while net profit declined by more than 11%. He says the performance highlights the resilience of a business model deliberately expanded beyond traditional equity trading.
Revenue grew 8.9% to $2.89 billion. Net profit stepped down 11.3% to $440 million, in spite of the fact that it was a difficult year for the country as a whole. Earnings per share came in at 63 cents, against 71 cents for the previous year, and we listed 18 new securities, an 80% increase over 2024. Behind those numbers is the larger figure, $22.3 billion in fresh capital raised through this exchange in 2025.
In the meantime, the JSE CEO named the Jamaica Central Securities Depository, JCSD, as a major earnings pillar for the group. He says recurring income streams from depository, trustee, and registration services help stabilize earnings during a period when equity markets face considerable pressure.
The Jamaica Central Securities Depository, JCSD, has now delivered 5 consecutive years of revenue growth. Revenue grew from $1.13 billion in 2021 to $1.62 billion in 2025. Profit reached $409 million, which is 40% of total group revenue. The number of JCSD accounts crossed 355,000, with close to 27,000 accounts being added in 2025 alone. And JCSD returned $309.8 million to the JSE, the parent, representing over 75% of its profit.
At the same time, the group's transaction volumes rose nearly 18%, while trading volume climbed almost 29%, and value traded increased more than 8%.
Indices were softer across the board, 5 to 7% down. But look at the second row on this slide. Transactions rose 17.9% to more than 245,000 units. Volume traded rose 28.6%. Value traded increased 8.2%. Investors were active even in a down price year. That distinction matters.
That was JSE Group CEO Livingston Morrison. In other news, Jamaica recorded weaker international trade activity at the start of 2026, with both imports and exports declining amid lower spending on fuel and softer export earnings. New data from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica Statin shows that the country's total import bill for January fell 11.5% to US $573.1 million, down from $647.6 million US dollars recorded a year earlier. The decline was largely driven by lower imports of raw materials and intermediate goods, consumer products, and fuels and lubricants. At the same time, export earnings also weakened. Statin says total exports for January amounted to US $114.8 million, representing a 14.4% decline compared with January 2025. The contraction was mainly linked to a sharp 34.9% fall in crude materials, excluding fuels. The United States, China, Brazil, Japan, Trinidad and Tobago, and Germany remained Jamaica's main trading partners for imports, while the United States, Russian Federation, Trinidad and Tobago, Cayman Islands, and Singapore were among the country's top export destinations. Revenue from exports to these leading markets declined 3.1% to US $94.2 million. The latest figures suggest weaker merchandise trade flows at the start of the year, with lower fuel imports and softer commodity exports shaping Jamaica's external trade performance. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Thursday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 113 stocks, of which 54 advanced, 45 declined, and 14 traded firm. Leading the winners are Elite Diagnostic, Lumber Depot, Kingston Properties, and Caribbean Producers Jamaica, while leading the losers are First Rock Real Estate Investments, A.S. Bryden & Sons Holdings 6% Class A preference share, Paramount Trading Jamaica, and First Rock Real Estate Investments USD. The main index advanced by 1,435.15 points to close at 340,626.69 points. The junior market index also advanced, but by 7.71 points to close at 3,114 points. It's time for the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. In today's Market Education feature, let's talk about comparative advantage. Comparative advantage refers to the ability of a country, company, or individual to produce a good or service at a lower opportunity cost than others. In international trade, this concept explains why countries benefit from specializing in products they can produce more efficiently and trading for others. For example, a nation with strong natural resources may focus on mining, while another with lower production costs may specialize in manufacturing. That was the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next. The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, Tease the Senses, and Pulse Investments.
This project marks the celebration of our 30th Hall of Fame and aims to highlight the achievements, challenges, and invaluable lessons of those who have shaped and are shaping the future of our economy. Our aim is to celebrate the voices and stories of 30 remarkable leaders in Jamaica's private sector. Join us as we explore these narratives of resilience, leadership, and vision.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. Trinidad and Tobago is targeting a major shift away from energy dependence, with the government pushing for billions in new exports from the non-energy economy. Speaking at the Trade Ministry's Diversification in Action Year 1 report on Wednesday, Trade Minister Satyakama Maharaj says the country must build a more balanced economy, capable of delivering stronger exports, greater investment, and long-term stability, with the non-energy sector playing a larger role in that future growth.
But our country also possesses enormous untapped potential in the non-energy sectors. Transformation and development of the non-energy sectors is about building a more balanced, resilient, and sustainable economy capable of generating broader opportunities, stronger foreign exchange earnings, increased competitiveness, and long-term national stability. Because countries do not transform by accident. They transform through deliberate strategy, coordinated execution, and visioning.
That was Trade Minister Satyakama Maharaj. The government says it is supporting exporters, improving port efficiency, and expanding manufacturing to boost non-energy exports and foreign exchange earnings. Director of Trade Facilitation Neville Alexander says the country is targeting $2 billion in additional non-energy exports by 2027.
Our target is to generate an additional $2 billion in non-energy exports by 2027 and $5 billion by 2030. Foreign exchange is the lifeblood for trade and investment. Traditionally, the energy sector has led our exports and forex generation. That has often led to economic unpredictability. What is required is a more diversified economy. Further than that, what is required is a strong non-energy sector.
That was Trinidad and Tobago's Director of Trade Facilitation, Neville Alexander. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is facing a two-sided economic squeeze, rising public debt and higher global energy costs that are pushing up the cost of living. In a national address on Wednesday to mark his 6 months in office, Prime Minister Dr. Godwin Friday painted a sobering picture of the country's financial position, warning that years of high spending and growing deficits have left the country under serious fiscal strain.
Therefore, effective immediately, we are implementing a 3-month intervention measure to suppress the effects of high fuel prices by 1, reducing excise tax, and also by reducing the customs service charge by 50% on imported petroleum products.
And as rising oil and shipping prices continue to drive up the cost of living, adding pressure to households and businesses, the government has announced a 90-day emergency cost of living package, including tax and fuel relief measures. The measures are aimed at providing short-term relief while the government addresses longer-term fiscal challenges.
Therefore, effective immediately, we are implementing a 3-month intervention measure to suppress the effects of high fuel prices by 1, reducing excise tax, and also by reducing the customs service charge by 50% on imported petroleum products.
That was Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Godwin Friday. And in corporate news, National Flour Mills NFM Limited is remaining profitable while continuing to invest in expansion and agribusiness growth. The company reported first quarter profit of 10.7 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars, even as revenue edged lower to $125.8 million, down from $129.4 million during the same period last year. During the quarter, which ended March 31, 2021-2026, total assets increased to more than $557 million, up from $506 million a year earlier, reflecting continued investment in operations and equipment. National Flour Mills says it is also expanding its bulk feed distribution network to better serve large farms, signaling a continued push into agribusiness support. Chairman Hamlin Jailal says the company remains focused on operational efficiency, cost management, and long-term growth. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 23 securities, of which 4 advanced, 6 declined, and 13 traded firm. Today's winners are Trinidad and Tobago NGL, Trinidad Cement, First Citizens Group Financial Holdings, and Guardian Holdings, while leading the losers are Ansa McCall, JMMB Group, CIBC Caribbean, and Unilever Caribbean. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All-TNT Index declined by 16.46 points to close at 1,425.10. The Composite Index also declined by 9.72 points to close at 994.71. The Cross-Listed Index slipped 0.34 points to close at 74.80, while the SME Index remained at 79.78. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
So much book you need for high school?
I'll show you how to make sure you have all the money for my books and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
Welcome back. In international news, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has delivered a forceful case for deeper U.S.-Canada economic integration, arguing that a stronger Canada would directly enhance American competitiveness, energy security, and industrial growth. Speaking at the Economic Club of New York on Thursday, Carney described Canada as America's largest customer, or rather he described Canada as America's largest customer, saying the country purchases more U.S. goods than China, Japan, and Germany combined, while remaining deeply integrated into North American supply chains.
Canada is America's largest customer. We buy more goods from America than China, Japan, and Germany combined. Those common interests run through our supply chains, where 70% of Canadian exports are inputs to American cars, homes, aircraft, machinery, finished goods, creating hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of U.S. value add.
Carney also argued that North America's integrated manufacturing platform provides a strategic advantage, particularly in the automotive and energy sectors, where Canadian production remains closely embedded within U.S. industrial networks.
With America's growing energy needs because of the incredible transformation here, does it really make sense to build the gigawatts here needed to replace Canada? On automobiles, Canada is far and away America's biggest customer, and an integrated North American market for production is the best and most durable way to confront intense, truly intense global competition. On critical minerals, with our endowments from potash, nickel, copper, uranium, lithium, cobalt, beyond, Canada can be the most reliable supplier that America needs to put affordable food on the table, strengthen national defense, and meet the exploding demand to power AI.
That was Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. Meanwhile, tighter energy supplies are also continuing to reshape commodity markets and fuel expectations. U.S. crude oil inventories declined by 3.33 million barrels during the week ending May 22, slightly below expectations for a 4 million barrel draw as refinery activity and fuel demand strengthened. Crude stockpiles at the Cushing, Oklahoma delivery hub fell by 2.794 million barrels, marking the largest decline since August 2023 and highlighting continued pressure on available supply. Refinery activity also accelerated, with crude processing increasing by 652,000 barrels per day during the week. Gasoline inventories dropped by 2.57 million barrels, surpassing expectations for a 2.4 million barrel decline. Distillate inventories, including diesel and heating oil, also fell by 2.11 million barrels, compared with forecasts for a 1 million barrel draw. Meanwhile, net U.S. crude imports increased by roughly 360,000 barrels per day from the previous week, partially offsetting tighter domestic supply conditions. And as energy markets respond to shifting geopolitical developments, investors are also recalibrating positions in traditional safe haven assets. Gold prices edged higher to around $4,500 an ounce on Thursday as investors weighed tentative diplomatic progress in the Middle East against persistent geopolitical and inflation risks. U.S. and Iranian officials have reportedly reached a 60-day memorandum of understanding designed to extend the ceasefire and open negotiations surrounding Iran's nuclear program, although the arrangement still requires final approval from President Donald Trump. Despite those developments, regional tensions remain elevated amid continued U.S.-Iran clashes and renewed Israeli strikes on Hezbollah-linked positions in Lebanon. Gold, however, remains near a 2-month low as rising energy prices and inflation concerns continue dampening expectations for imminent interest rate cuts and supporting higher bond yields. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break.
It's feeling so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now. Don't ever, ever, ever wanna calm down. Oh, no, no. Yeah, yeah.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, NARA governance questions grow ahead of reconstruction rollout. Regionally, TNT targets a US $2 billion boost in non-energy exports by 2027. And internationally, Canadian Prime Minister pushes deeper US-Canada economic integration. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
Hi, I'm Samika Alexander Williamson, founder of Cradle of Life Limited. You're watching